Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the jam-packed Finance Committee meeting for March 28th, 2018. We have a large audience and a lot of people here to talk with us. We have a heavy agenda, so we're going to get right to it tonight. We are continuing our department head meetings, and we're going to start right away with the treasurer-collector.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Sonia Hodge, Treasurer Collector. I've been with the town for 2.5 years now, so still fairly new. Okay, where would you like to start?
Let's start with your line items.
Okay.
Start with treasurer-collector. I believe we're page 7 for those who are following along.
Okay, well, starting at the very top, I don't have anything budgeted for the retiree vacation buyback. At the moment, I don't have anybody retiring. Yay! So there's nothing budgeted to pay out there. Treasurer collector salaries, modest increase from current year.
And is that contractual?
Most of it is contractual, yes. And then the sick leave incentive, that is also contractual. If staff do not use their sick time, they get a day's pay after 6 months. And then moving into the expense line items. The first one is our postage meter. That is the meter that's in our office that the whole town uses to weigh and print their postage. Education and training. This one does have an increase this year, and I can go over why I'm choosing to or hoping to increase the budget. The first line is the 545. That's what is currently budgeted for this year. And carrying that over, the additional amounts are first to send the administrative assistant to the annual school. That is put on by the Collector Treasurers Association. In the past, that position had not received any additional training or professional development, and I would like to add that for that position. That involves going to University of Amherst, and that's a 2-day conference where they take prescribed courses to hopefully get towards a certification at the end of 3 years. So it's very worthwhile. They learn on-the-job skills of what they come into contact with every day. So it'd be helpful. And the next item is a GFOA certification, and that would be for myself, in addition to the certification that I'm currently pursuing with the Collector Treasurers Association. The GFOA certification is a series of exams. There are 5 separate exams on accounting, treasury, debt management, operations, and retirement. And the program is set up that you have a membership with the Government Finance Officers Association, which is a national organization. Then you purchase materials, and then at the end of the year you take an exam. And it looks like I should be able to finagle it that I can have the exam given here so that I don't have to travel anywhere. But I would be able to complete the 5 exams in 3 years, the way I'm looking at it. So obviously if the town is providing the certification opportunity for me, the materials would stay with the town. And if anybody else wanted to take the exams, the materials would already be purchased. And it looks like they use the same materials year over year. So hopefully, I think it would add a lot of value, not only to my position, but then having the opportunity for someone else if they wanted to also do the certification after me. But I'm hoping that that gets approved because I would really enjoy going through that and really getting more in depth into the different areas of my job and feeling like I'm really, really doing a nice job for the town. So that's what that is for.
The certification, what does it sort of like help with?
I'm sorry?
The certification, what does it help with? Like, is there any sort of thing that we can't do right now that with that we can?
No.
Yep.
No, nothing like that. It would be a professional certification that I would be able to say that I've gone through this rigorous process to show that I am competent in these various areas.
Sure.
And using that extra training will certainly help me in performing my position.
Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, if there aren't any other questions, we'll move on. The next line is purchase services. I have actually a slight decrease in that one. This line item covers our lockbox, which takes in the bulk of our tax payments, and they process the payments automatically for us using technology so that we're not having to manually enter payments. It's also our payroll processing company fees and various other small items where we pay another company to help us provide services. The next one is postage that I've also been able to decrease slightly. Looking at the year-over-year spending, we didn't warrant having $23,000 in that line item, so I was able to take that down a tad. Next is office supplies, no change in that line item. We were able to stick to that budget every year, so I see no reason to increase it. Travel, you'll see a slight increase of $200, and that is an additional expense if we are able to send the administrative assistant to the annual school. Because it's in Amherst, can't drive back and forth, so it would pay for her hotel. And finally, dues and fees. This is basically level, except for that certification would require I pay dues to the GFOA in order to take those exams.
Is that a yearly going forward?
It would be annual. Mm-hmm.
And what's the increase for that?
That is $180. Unfortunately, I can't take the exams if I'm not a paying member. So that's the Treasurer Collector's Department budget. Are there any questions on that?
And you just have the one administrative assistant?
We have one administrative assistant and 2 chief bookkeepers.
And the administrative assistant's full-time, and both bookkeepers are?
They're all full-time,
All full-time.
32 hours a week. The administrative assistant processes our payroll and is also backup on certain treasury items. So a little more responsibility. Okay. The next part of my budget is the tax foreclosure item, and that is Department 1580. So it should be pretty close.
It's page 10.
Okay.
10.
And I don't have any change on this one. This is pretty standard. This line item pays for all of our tax taking processes. So for delinquent property taxes, we go through a tax taking process where we assign a lien to the property that it gets recorded with the Registry of Deeds. It adds minor fees to the account, and it increases the interest rates for those accounts. And it's the first step in moving towards a foreclosure if we have to get to that point. I have a handful of foreclosures that I'm working on right now. Those processes are also paid out of this account, so legal fees primarily, but also recording fees with the registry.
What's a handful? 5?
I think actually I do have exactly 5. Mm-hmm. I do have to keep that number low because we have a relatively small budget, but we do have a large number of tax title accounts right now. I would like to get that down a ways, but due to the restrictions in the budget, we do it a little at a time. And as I get one that comes off, I add another 1 or 2 on. Typically, for every 3 that you put on, 1 of them will pay off when they get the notice. And then the other 2 will go a little ways. But we haven't had to actually foreclose on anyone since I've been here, so that's a positive, definitely. Okay, the next, we're going into the 9,000s for departments. First one is retirement, 9110.
56.
Now, the retirement budget is set by the county, so we get a notification of what our payment will be. For 19, it's 2.6 million. We choose to make one payment in July at the beginning of the fiscal year in order to save money. We have the option of paying twice a year, and they split it into two, but they do add interest to that. So we save money by making the one payment.
What's the interest rate?
I don't know the exact rate, but it's about $50,000 extra if we were to do two payments. So enough that we don't want to do that. Luckily, we have the cash flow that we can handle paying this much all at once at the beginning of the year. If cash flow were ever to become a problem, we would need to look at moving to a twice-a-year payment schedule, but I don't see that being an issue anytime soon.
Do employees contribute?
Employees do contribute. This is just the employer share. It's quite a bit. New employees that come on contribute 9%, and if they are going to be making more than $30,000 a year, they contribute another 2%. So 11% of their salary goes to that. Okay, the next one I have is 9130, that's unemployment.
Just, sorry to go back there. With the 50 grand that they were talking about, is there something that we could do with that 50,000, excuse me, the second payment money, like the bulk of that second payment that would be somewhat beneficial, or it's just, we've never really looked at that?
The only reason we don't need to do the two payments for the year is because we have the cash flow to do the one.
Yep.
Doing one saves us money.
Yep.
So we try to stick to that one. So, does that answer your question?
No, but it's
Okay.
it's not
I
incredibly
think the
bad.
question is more if we didn't do the one payment up front and kept that money and did something with the money, would we be able to
Exactly, 'cause anybody
make
ever looked at
more
if-
than what the interest?
If we had
Not with-
$1.25 million, so, you know, over an extra course of the year, yes.
Right.
That's what I mean, like,
The
could,
interest rates are nowhere near enough to make us $50,000
Yep.
in that amount of time. Yeah, it wouldn't happen.
And you would still have to budget that full amount for the year.
Yes.
Even though you're doing it in two payments, so you
Yep.
couldn't
Right.
use it once it's budgeted for a specific
For something else.
line
Right.
item. You can't then move it to something else, so
Right.
then,
But yeah, the interest income wouldn't be nearly enough to cover that extra.
Sure. Yep.
For unemployment, I have a flat 70. This is kind of a placeholder because we're never quite sure where we're going to come in. This year has been very quiet, which is great. You might be able to turn back some money into the general fund balance, but we'll see. You never know.
do you know where you're at with that right now, unemployment? What's been expended to date?
When I printed out this out today, we have spent less than 10,000. So we are looking good this year. But if you have a full-time person get terminated, that could go away pretty quickly. We want to make sure we're prepared in case that does happen.
Yep.
And keep in mind, that might necessarily just be a layoff, that could be somebody who might be for just cause.
Yes.
And it could be on the wrong end of the determination by Commonwealth of Massachusetts, an unemployment claim or something.
Yep.
We are also on the hook if someone were to leave town service and work somewhere else where they are laid off, because we were a prior employer, we might also have to pay part of the unemployment.
If
for
it's
that
within a
person.
certain time frame, right?
Exactly. So even though they did not leave our service and file for unemployment because they left somewhere else and they qualified, we would also be on the hook for that. So those are situations you never can plan for because you have no idea when that would happen. Okay, the next item is health insurance, everyone's favorite, 9140. Okay, This one, we have a placeholder of 10% from the current year
Increase.
increase. We'll be getting better numbers early next month to see exactly how we're standing this year. We just moved to a self-funding model, as you know, which does increase a little bit of risk that the town is taking on. However, it has meant we've saved quite a bit of money by doing that. So early next month, we'll get better figures. Once the third quarter of the fiscal year is complete, we'll get another statement from Blue Cross showing where we stand in relation to what we've paid to them to administer our claims and how many claims have actually been processed and paid out. So the first 2 quarters, we were looking very good. That's because it's early stages. Not as many claims have been submitted by the time those quarters were completed. So third quarter will give us a much better idea of where we stand. But so far, we've been looking really good. So the self-funding for this year has been a good decision so far, and we expect it to continue for the rest of the year.
Can you talk about some of the risks to the town by self-funding?
By self-funding, we are taking the responsibility of paying all of our medical claims on ourselves. When you fully insure with a health insurance company, you pay them a premium and they agree to pay out all of the claims according to your plan design. So if you have a deductible, you pay the deductible, and after that they pay everything else regardless. For us, we take in the premiums, we keep them in a pot, and then as claims come in, they get paid out from that pot. If the premiums don't cover the claims, we have to increase premiums in order to cover those bills that are coming in.
And those premiums that increase to the employee?
The town also contributes. So when we increase the premiums,
To
everyone pays
both.
more, just depending on
What the
the
percentage
plans.
is.
The percentage is different, exactly, yep. And we do have insurance, so if we had a really large catastrophic claim, we pay insurance premiums out of the health premiums that we're taking in and contributing from the town to cover those large claims. So if we get a $3 million claim in, our little pot of premiums is not going to cover that amount. The insurance would kick in and pay those claims separately. Is that?
Yes, it does, thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, to get back to the $70,000 one on the unemployment, if it's not used, does it go anywhere? Is it just something, so if that particular thing isn't used, I've just heard the use it or lose it kind of a deal, it's
Yep.
just,
Typically, it'll default to just as a turn back, so it goes into the fund balance as
Okay.
money not used.
Mhm.
There are times at the end of the year where we need to make transfers to cover other expenses that ended up coming in higher than budgeted.
Sure.
And so we can use.
you can use this for that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so it just depends on where it goes in the year. Sometimes the unemployment comes in low and we're able to use that money. Sometimes it's a different line item.
Sure.
And so it just kind of depends at the end of the year. We all kind of take a look and see where we're at.
Or it would be default to close out at the end of the year, the general fund, become free cash
Free
next
cash.
year.
Yep.
But for instance, health insurance, and again, maybe I'm not the person who should say this based upon my weather forecast, but so far, my health insurance is performing fairly well, and I know Sonia has some debt and interest issues. She may need to transfer some money, and that would be a good location to transfer some funds from there to debt service at the end of the year, so, as an example.
Yep.
And again, erase that from the record.
Okay, any questions on health insurance?
Anyone else?
Okay. Next is life insurance, $91.50. I have no change here. 12,000 is a pretty modest amount. And that is just the town share of the basic life insurance policy that we offer to employees. And Medicare, $91.60. I have a 3% increase budgeted here. I'll do a final review of that figure once we know what all the salaries are budgeted at. The Medicare is a specific percentage on all salaries that gets paid to the IRS.
Sorry, life insurance, is that self-funded?
No.
No.
No, that is funded through Boston Mutual, fully funded.
We ever looked at it? Is it just not worth it
What do you mean?
to take on the risk like we do with the other health insurance?
Not for life insurance.
No?
That's, I don't think
Bigger-
I've
way bigger.
seen that done. Yeah, I've seen it done with like dental or vision insurance, but not with life insurance, because the payouts can be pretty significant.
Sure.
And life insurance premiums have not been the level of out of control that health insurance
Correct.
premiums have been, so.
Yep. The life insurance premiums we reduced this year from 13,000 down to 12. So if lots of people decided they wanted to take that life insurance, we might have to increase that again, but the rates haven't increased. So, no reason to. Okay, so, and again, with the Medicare, I'll take a final look at that once we know what all the salaries are budgeted at, so we make sure that we have enough there to pay those bills.
The Medicare bills are from employees?
There is an employee share and a town share. This is just the town
town
share.
share.
Mhm. Okay. And now we're on to debt. And debt is the 7,000s. 7,100 and 7,500.
Page 51.
I have handouts for you all. This is our debt schedule. And
You went to
tucked
vets,
inside
it's debts.
is
Oh,
a little
sorry.
bit of information that Sean had asked for.
7,100.
I thought you, thank you.
Now, this lists all of our outstanding debt. And I've gone back a couple of years and forward a few years so you can see, compare year over year what our debt is looking like. On the back page, there are totals. For fiscal year 19, we are seeing a decrease in our debt service at 4.7 million, down from 5.4. That's primarily because last year for the new school, we had a double interest payment, and that is quite a bit of money right off the bat. So this year we'll have just two interest payments, and so it's quite a bit cheaper. And that'll be significant savings to the taxpayers because the school project is debt excluded. So that gets added on to the tax bill.
Based on the average home, what would you think that the savings would be?
That I did not calculate. I can tell you that the average home value is $343,000 for a single family. Jack was nice enough to provide that figure for me. Do you have an estimate of what,
What was the question, I'm sorry?
So,
the tax rate will be lower?
The,
Well, usually when
Well-
the tax rate will go lower when values go up.
Yeah.
We're just trying to hit a level.
Yeah.
So for the most part, values have been going up and they still will be going up.
Yeah.
But when the
If
debt
going
exclusion-
down,
right.
debt going down, yes. The tax rate will,
just,
yes, the tax rate will go down
Okay.
with that as well.
good area.
I have no idea what our values will be, and I have no idea what the tax rate will be at this time.
That's what
Way too early.
I was
Yeah.
looking for a stab in the dark.
Maybe November timeframe.
Thank you.
Hi, sorry I'm late. Here's our debt schedule for you. Thank you. So it's a lot of information. We have quite a few water borrowings outstanding. And then at the top, we have our town debts. The second column has the year of maturity. That'll be the final year that we make payments. To give you an idea of how far these will be going out, you can see in fiscal year 26 to 30, we've got quite a few coming off.
And what is, it might sound ignorant, but what is why do we do this?
Why do we borrow?
Yeah.
Well, we borrow for projects that we wouldn't be able to fund right up front. So they cost, we have to pay for the whole project in the first year that we do the work. So by borrowing, we're able to extend the amount that we have to make those payments. For water particularly, because these projects have to be paid from water usage fees, that would be, if we tried to pay it in the first year out of fees, they would have to increase the rates so drastically that it would just be impossible for people to afford their water bills. So by borrowing, we can extend that out 20 years and they can pay in installments. So that is able to keep the rates fairly even. And same for the town debt. If we were to try to pay for these projects all at once, we would be needing to ask for exclusions all the time because there's no way, we wouldn't be
Sure.
able to raise the levy that high year over year because we're capped.
Yep.
So it allows us to do these larger projects without running into funding issues. And by spreading it out, our spending needs are a little more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Less
planned.
constricted to,
Yes.
over the.
We can plan
course of
for
time.
them because we know what they are, because they're set out. Once we do the bond issue, the schedule is set from that day on. It does not change. So we can look at it and we know exactly what we need to have on hand to make our debt service. So it makes it a little easier for cash flow as well in that respect.
So we don't have anything coming off for quite a while.
Several years.
Mhm. The more recent debt issues especially, we have, well, and even some of the older ones, we try to set them so that it's level principal, which means that we pay the same amount of principal every year, but the interest goes down each year, which means the total amount we pay on a single issue will be less and less as the years go on. So that does help because we're always going to have more projects come up. So if another project comes up, as bond issues go down and we're paying less and less, if you add a new one, it's not quite as horrible as if you're paying the same amount and then you're adding more projects on
Because
top.
sometimes something drops off, and just as it drops off, something else is
Yeah.
coming on, so you don't see a change in the,
It doesn't feel as awful when you get your tax bill. Because we know families need to be able to plan for what their taxes are going to be, and so if it's going up and down so drastically, it's very hard for them to plan, just like it's hard for us to plan.
And is there a limit about how many of these we can get on here? Or is there,
We do have a debt limit
Yep.
that we have to stay within. The reason you'll see some of these in yellow that say debt exclusion, those were voted at town meeting to go above the debt limit. And those are simply, they're not part of the regular tax levy. So we calculate what the levy will be for the operating budget primarily, and then the debt exclusion is just added on top of that to the tax bill. So we approach those with caution because we know that that is an extra burden on the taxpayer. So we're very careful when we do ask
Sure.
for a debt exclusion. And the taxpayers are very careful of when they grant one, which they should be. It's a big deal.
sure,
Any other questions there?
So the interest on the high school is $1.5 million a year?
To start off, it is, we borrowed $46 million.
so that's basically my question, right? So is somebody or you even looking at, so when I went back to that treasury to pay it off in the beginning, could we do something with, meaning, is that tax rate higher than what we would get on a bond, right? So we obviously would not want to do that if that was the case. Or is it less? Do you understand what I'm saying?
I think so,
So with that, I forgot what line item it was, but we pay it all in the beginning,
right.
instead of half and half.
Instead of 2.
And so we would have, just for argument's sake, $1.25 million sitting somewhere for a good majority of the year, which we could pay for some of this stuff. That rate, is it less than these rates that we get on borrowing the money here?
Yeah, so the rate that we're getting just having money sitting in a bank account is about 0.5%.
Yep.
Whereas the rates that we're paying here is 3%.
No, I meant the rate that we, so the rate that we would pay. You see what I'm saying?
Right, it's
So-
gonna be more than 0.5%.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. If we were to put 1.2 million in a bank account, which we have, we're not making $50,000 in 6 months.
No.
It's just not happening.
And it's
Yeah.
basically a 6-month time frame.
Right, because the next payment would be due in
Yep.
January.
Okay.
It would be great if we were
Yeah.
getting that kind of
yeah.
That would be awesome. Then that conversation would make a lot of sense, and we would be looking at, okay, well, how can we defer some of our expenses so that we can make more interest?
Yeah, that's
Revenue.
I'm not great with grammar, but
No,
that's
no,
legitimately
no,
what.
it's a
my
good
question
point
was.
though, and if we were in a higher interest rate environment, that would be.
Right.
Everyone would be doing that.
Question though, Greg, is Sonia is always looking at the.
That's what I'm saying.
At the cash flow.
That's what I mean, like, I didn't know if it was your job to look at it, so that's,
Yes.
that was a cough whistle.
What's our bond rating right now?
It's AA, stable. So we just had our bond rating affirmed, AA, and the stable outlook means they do not expect it to go up or down in the near future, which is a good place to be. There were certain things that they recommended we could do to increase the bond rating. We could have more stringent financial policies than is required by state law. Currently, we follow state law in terms of our financial policy and our budgeting. They did like our conservative budgeting processes, and they liked how we went through the process and conservative revenue estimates. They loved all of that. There were certain items with investment policies, debt management. If we were more strict about them, and we increased our savings rate for OBRA, which is retiree health insurance, and stabilization for our fund balance. If we were to significantly increase those, they might give us a positive outlook. A negative outlook is a little easier to attain if you let some of your policies slip or you start having issues making payments. Those types of things, they come onto pretty quickly. But the stable outlook right now is great. And we're able to get a very good interest rate on our bond issues with that bond rate.
What would be the difference in interest rate between the AA stable and AA positive?
It depends on who you ask. If it decreases, you're talking about probably, I would say at least 0.6% is going to go up. If you do a positive, your gains are not that great. So you might be looking at 0.2 or 0.3. Like, it's not quite as good when you get a better bond rating, but if you drop a lot. So.
And I might add that the town was able to increase from a AA negative at the time Sonia had to go out for the borrowing on high school. So we were able to make some progress in the last dozen years or so.
Yeah.
Would that make a huge difference here? The positive?
For the school borrowing, something that large, it would, yeah.
The cost of doing that, would it still outweigh that? Like the cost of doing whatever they're telling us to do?
Well, and that's the question.
Right.
Is it worth putting that much cash in a fund that we can't touch?
Right.
In order to save, possibly smaller amount of money.
0.2%.
Right, exactly. So you're definitely trying to weigh what gets us where we need to be.
Yep.
Where we're able to provide the services we need to provide for the town, and yet still do as well as we can with our financial management. So it is a balancing act,
Sure.
definitely. It's a great question.
questions on debt?
Well, I would just, to that question, we really did make a push to go from a double A negative to a double A before.
We did,
borrowing
yes.
on high school, so there was
Yes.
somewhat of a conscious decision to make a push to try to upgrade before that borrowing had to be made. There was a firm, as Sonny mentioned before, the borrowing on the water main borrowing just recently, a couple of weeks ago.
Good.
Any other questions? That's all I had for you. Are there any other general questions that you have for me?
Sonia, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jack, assessors. Moving back to page 6.
Jack, before we start, can you, we have a few new people, really new people, and you always do a good job explaining the levy and the 2.5, and
Sure.
if you could do that, just so that,
Jack Pistrino, Deputy Assessor. Basically, when we participate in setting the tax rate with the Department of Revenue, and growth goes into it, which means when we have new construction, new homes, that gets put into Proposition 2.5. What we have is the levy from last year. Then we can put in Proposition 2.5, which is about 700,000, 70, let me get my, exactly what it is. It will be $720,000 this year, $746,000 this year, and we had new growth of $462,000. So that goes in to get our levy. So when we have new construction, that all goes into Proposition 2.5, as well as the growth, and as well as what Sonia was talking about was debt exclusions or capital exclusions. So last year, we had $35,256,000 for a levy. That's basically growth.
who levies the amount that,
That has to be raised through taxation. And we had a little bit over $35 million. We have over $2 billion worth of value in real estate and personal property that my office handles. I have myself as full-time assessor, and I have a full-time administrator and a part-time clerk, 20 hours. We also have a company that we utilize for our software and for our valuation. It's Vision, and they also participate going out. We have to go to every single building permit that gets pulled that could increase value, either through growth or through other means as well. But the only thing that gets put on the levy would be the growth. So if someone just put on a new roof and some new windows, just home improvements, that will lessen the depreciation, which means the value has to go up. You can sell your house for more, but that doesn't get put in as growth. That's just another category. And so that's...
like another category to come up with the value for your house.
Exactly, but we have to account for every single value that goes up or down for any property that we do. So that gets put into the recap at the end of the year. And it's called the LA13. It has growth and other factors. A lot of times, you know, the only time that it wouldn't be put in, it would be put in is if it's new taxes, new garages put on, additions to the home. things of that nature. But maintenance of the home, it does not get put on for growth.
When a contractor buys a plot of land,
Yeah,
being assessed for X amount,
Yes.
puts a house on it,
yes.
when does it start being taxed with the house on it?
After January 1st. We can
So
pick up,
if I build it as of July 1st this year, it doesn't get taxed?
no, we'll
as a
get
house?
picked up, we're an accelerated town, we can go all the way to the end of June. So when they put a brand new house up in March and so forth, I pick it up in June.
Okay.
And the treasurer, I give the file to the treasurer collector for that time
And
period.
no matter who owns it at the time?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
Ownership does not matter, but all that, so we had a plot of land that was being valued, which has already been taxed. The new growth would be the new house that goes on
Right.
top of that. And if it's not completed at the end of June, I have to put it's still under construction, and I have a percentage of what is, could be 60% complete. And then next year, I pick it up in January, so.
Why don't they do it the minute it's finished and it gets an occupancy permit?
Well, again, you can only pick it up, most towns, not most towns, some towns are from January on. They can't pick anything up after January. We can pick it up all the way to the end of June.
Right. I'm just thinking to optimize getting the tax out of the built house.
Yeah, well, we would get it anyway. In January, we would get it.
No, I understand, but if I finish building the house on May 1st and I get an occupancy
Oh, you
permit for
would
it,
get, it would be full value at that time. If you did it in July, it would be, and it's not completed, I would have it, say, at 90%. So
Right.
10% would not be taxed until next year. So that's how the growth works. I think that's what you wanted.
Yeah, just an explanation of the levy,
How the levy is calculated.
how the levy's calculated,
Yep.
and the 2.5 each year, and,
Yeah, we have to put 2.5% of the levy, and then we use the growth factor, and then we had to put in all our debt. Last year's debt was 4.172, $4,172,000. That's what was in for debt exclusions, like Sonny was talking about.
When you say growth factor,
Yes.
what is that, meaning like GDP?
Nope, I'm talking about the growth of the town.
Growth of the town.
Value. Yeah, things that have not been taxed
Yeah,
in prior years.
got it. So newer stuff.
Yes.
New construction,
New construction, add-ons,
additions.
but not maintenance.
Yeah, I understand.
But maintenance does get picked up as value for your property.
so then the levy ends up being the amount that you can take in,
Yes.
and then you can only increase 2.5% above that.
Every year, yes, we can go up to 2.5%,
Right.
and then the growth, and then debt. That's what goes into the levy. So you have last year's levy, add 2.5% to that, add the growth, which was $462,000 last year, which changes every year, and then the debt of 4.172, which came out to $35,256,674 last year. That's what needed to be raised through taxation for the levy.
Any other questions there? I'm going
Thanks,
to-
Jack.
Yes, thank you
I
very
didn't
much.
have it all, though. I'm
I
sorry.
know, no, you,
Okay, for my budget. Let's see. Like I said earlier, I have myself as a full-time assessor. I have a full-time admin, which is in the union, the clerk's union, and as well as a part-time 20-hour clerk as well. There was about a 2% increase in salaries, some of it contractual. We have also under that the sick leave incentive. The clerks, the unions have sick leave incentives. They get, if they're not sick in the calendar year, they get so much money and so forth. That came to $947 for 2 clerks. I also have health insurance incentives for the clerks. One of them does not take the health insurance, so they get a stipend of $750. That hasn't changed. And that's all I have for my salary lines. So there was a modest 2% increase.
I'm so sorry. Can you just explain that one? So if they don't take the health insurance?
Yep, if they don't, if employees of the town do not take, in this union anyway, the clerks union, they get $750 stipend if they don't use the
If
insurance.
they're eligible for the insurance, for health insurance, and they do not partake of it,
Didn't we just say we made money on insurance?
they're eligible for.
But they're saving us
No.
money by not
Oh.
using ours.
So they're not-
They're not utilizing the insurance in the
So
town,
they're saving us
so,
money.
so the
But
contract
even a
indicates that
greater
they'll get
savings though, if we
$750
didn't pay
stipend.
them to take it.
Sorry.
That's,
Where I used
It's
to
a
work, they did that.
collective
It's an
bargaining.
archaic
Money to not take the insurance.
feature.
It's not my
It's a
call, it's
town
something that's in
manager.
their contract.
That's a collective bargaining agreement.
Collective bargaining.
It sounds like a lot of wasted money, but,
Well, again, it might be $14,000 that we're saving too.
right.
Yeah,
If you
whatever
have all
you're
these people
giving,
not taking it though, then they're not taking it. Like any other employer, you don't take health insurance, they don't reward you. Like my husband has health insurance, so I don't need to take it. My employer's not saying like, oh great, they're saying, great, we're saving $1,500 a month on you. They're not saying, let me give you half of that savings every month.
Again,
It's not
collective
you.
bargaining.
Yeah,
it's collective
It's
bargaining, it's
just,
just.
seems like
I'm just telling you
another,
what I have for my salary line item,
seems
and that
another
hasn't changed.
windfall.
sometimes it's you give to get,
Well,
so,
not in the private sector,
Well, might not be, unions are different.
right?
Is that if you
In
have
the-
an
yeah.
option between taking the town insurance or the insurance perhaps your spouse has,
Right.
and it's a tough call, it helps push you over the edge, in theory. Whether that's actually happening, that's been what's been in the contract for I'm not sure how long, but that's part of the collective bargaining.
It's never been looked at to negotiate it out of the contract.
Not in recent years, not in recent years, not in the clerical.
And does this amount go up every year?
No,
Sorry, you're the.
it's been that way for, ever since I've been here
That's
anyway.
been a fixed number for many years as far as I know.
Only one of
So,
my,
and then they still have a sick leave incentive, even though Mass state law has a mandatory sick leave act? Do
What's the
town
difference?
employees follow the Mass state law for sick time?
I'm not sure, what is it?
We have to follow state law. We're not exempt from state law.
So even though the state now requires us to have employees accrue, so it's any employee regardless of status accrues 1 hour for every 40 hours work. So we're still giving an incentive even though the state is requiring us to pay the 40 hours of sick time every?
so it's an incentive to not,
To
not take the day
to not
off,
take the sick time.
not take the sick time.
You get money if you don't take it
So
off.
they
Oh yeah,
can
no, I
accrue it.
understand what it is. It just seems like
And-
$805 with $750. That's a lot of money in a town that's struggling to, have a positive finances that is an archaic
Well-
system that
well,
we could
again-
do away with. And if we have your department and every single department in the town
But not all,
has it.
right, every department that has the clerks has this option, but not all departments utilize
Right.
it. My people really don't, they're not out sick. They don't use sick time. Some departments use sick time. But, so that's an option that they have.
Sorry,
So
this
I
is the
have-
first
so
time
I
I've
have-
really seen it
Well,
highlighted,
again,
so it seems like,
yeah, I'm surprised you didn't, if all the departments in town
Right,
hall,
right.
their clerks have that.
It's a matter of who actually,
And you're saying this is the collective bargain. There's really nothing anybody can do about it until it's up for that
Agreement
specific
is that.
discussion.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Got it.
like 1,500.
But that hasn't changed.
I'd love someone to pay me to work and not call in sick. Sorry.
It would be
You're the
nice.
messenger. I'm not. It's the first time that it's really highlighted out to me, so I apologize.
No
It just
problem
seems
at all.
like. based on
And that's
what-
all I have for the salary line items. For my expense line items, I have had no changes. Under the other professional technical budget, for the $44,900. That's basically, I utilize, like I was saying earlier, I have $30,000 roughly for my company Vision to come in and help us with the revaluation, interim year adjustments, as well as helping with some of the building permits and 9-year cyclicals. We have to go out and visit each home in Abington at least once every 9 years per the Department of Revenue. So also, we have personal property. I have a personal property company, RRC, that comes in and does the personal property for the town. We had about $35 million in valuation for personal property. Most of it is underground utilities and things of that nature. There are some, small businesses and so forth, but most of it is utilities. We also have, the assessors, we have to have maps generated every single year, GIS maps, showing the acreage, and if we have lot splits and things of that nature, they have to get updated. So I have about $3,500 in that line item for that as well. And I also have, we get deeds from the registry of deeds. It's under $500, but that's also in there. So that comes to $44,900. We've had a 3-year contract with Vision as well, my real estate company. So, and I think it increased about $1,600 this year for the 3 years. Not too bad.
Do we bid that out? Is that like one of those things that gets bid out?
No,
or-
this is my company this is my software company that I have in-house. No, we
Yep.
don't bid that out. This is these people I need.
No, I meant the people, I'm sorry, I get sidetracked. The people that go out and
Nope.
do the assessing.
They're not doing assessing. What they're doing is picking up building permits and so forth.
I got you.
So that's part of my company that we utilize in-house.
Yep.
But we don't go out to bid, we have postage that hasn't changed. Office supplies hasn't changed. The assessor, I have a town vehicle. The gas is for that. Yes, and vehicle supplies as well. Things happen to the vehicle. That needs to be in there. That hasn't changed as well. I have other supplies for the town, for the department. It's usually basically tools of the trade, measuring tapes, cameras, things of that nature that adds up.
How does the car work? Is it's purchased like
I
in
don't
a
put-
year and then?
Yeah,
Please.
I have a used car from the police departments.
Yep.
They have cars coming off the surplus.
Yeah.
That's the car that I have.
And it's the same people that fix it?
Yes, oh yes, yep.
That's great.
Repaint it, stick an assessor sticker on there.
Yeah, and that helps me get into the homes. Before, I didn't have a sticker.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I have a badge with me and so forth, but that doesn't help. But with the vehicle coming up with the town sticker and assessor,
Yeah.
people feel a little bit more comfortable with me. I give them a letter, they can call the police at the time and so forth.
Do you have the right to go into anybody's
No, I do
house?
not.
Okay.
And I asked if I can get permission to go on their property, to do an interior and exterior. Department of Revenue would like us to get inside each home. That's why we have a 9-year cyclical program that they want us to try to get in.
But if I object, you can't go in.
Or on your property. If you say, please don't come on my property, I will not go on your property as well. I knock, when I go out to people's homes, I knock on the door, I have a flyer with me, I have my card with me, I also have a badge. Introduce myself and tell them why I'm here. I could be here for the 9-year cyclical, I could be there for a building permit. People are very nice in this town.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, what's the rate of in or out?
A lot of times people aren't home.
Sure.
People are working, so that lowers the rate. I don't have the percentage of how many homes I do get into, but, we go to about 1,200 homes a year. I don't have the percentage though, but I do get into homes. People are leery. A lot of people don't want me in. They have a finished basement and, they don't want me in their property and because I will increase the value and I understand that.
Yep.
We're just trying to be fair to every taxpayer.
Sure.
That's all we're trying to do.
And so you have to estimate from the outside.
I have to estimate from the outside. I'm not an assessor that will say, put down a finished basement just to get into the property. I don't like doing that. I don't think it works very well, so. But I do estimate. A lot of times, you're in a neighborhood and the colonials, you know, you're pretty sure they have 2.5 baths. You don't get into it. It's 2.5 baths. I'm not gonna put down 3 bathrooms. So, you know, you get a feel for it after so long.
And are you able to use technology like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I do Google, we use an
Yeah.
awful lot.
Yeah.
You know, if I can't get on the property, I use MLS, I'm part of the real estate.
Exactly, that's what I was asking.
I get, you know, properties go online,
Yep.
they have, you know, 4 bathrooms or whatever. I can update my
Yep.
information, copy their MLS, put it into the system. So I use other things, I use Google Earth, which is great. I can get behind people's homes. A lot, well, it's my
Great
job.
technology is
Yeah, unfortunately,
amazing.
it's
I'm
my
like,
job.
yeah, I do the same thing every time I see a house listed. Actually, I could probably work for you.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a lot of technology that some assessors in larger towns use. They have the drones, they have things of that nature. They have, they have a lot of different measuring tools out there that you don't really have to get behind the property. But when we go to a home, we try to pull tape, we try to measure all the homes to make sure our data is accurate. We do a lot from the outside. Getting into the property, we don't always get in.
Sure.
But when we do, people are very nice. I go out throughout the home with the person. The only thing that might change value is, you know, basements and things like that.
Yeah, I understand.
Or somebody added a bathroom. But most people, not most, but a lot of people have building permits, so. And dues and fees have stayed the same as well. So all my expense line items have stayed the same. The only increase was to the salary line item.
Anyone have other questions for Jack? All right, Jack, thank you very much. Very informative
Thank you.
as always.
Thank you.
The town accountant, Sue Moakland. Okay, sure. Yep. Jack wants to take the microphone with him. Suzanne, do you want to come up?
Thank you.
Get you next time.
Suzanne Jesper, Council on Aging.
Thank you.
So I'm not sure, there was a mistake on the budget, and the mistake was part of the computer program. Sue was trying to fix it, it kind of doubled things over. So on the Council on Aging
What
salary.
page you're on?
44. Sorry,
I'm sorry.
sorry, just getting everybody.
No,
to
no,
the
that's
right
okay.
page.
Pages.
Yeah, your pages look different than our pages because of printing issues.
I have to speak a little up because they can't hear you.
Yeah.
Did you distribute,
I did not. I didn't. It's not that different.
Okay. We can go over what the.
Okay, so why don't we
Differences
leave
are.
the salaries to the end, and then I'll go over the regular budget. The regular budget, electricity, gas, equipment, vehicle, has not changed. Hasn't changed in the last couple of years. We've been able to sustain that budget and run the senior center. So that's a plus for that.
Yes.
We do have one of our grants, which is a formula grant. That is a grant that it comes from the state. It pays for a certain dollar amount per year per senior in Abington. It does it to all the towns in the Commonwealth. It changes. It goes by 2010 consensus. It might be more, might be less, but every year it changes, and it depends on what the state's budgeting. Right now, for this year, we have $27,000. $16,000 of that, I pay the outreach coordinator. That is probably the norm of every council on aging. they pay it through the formula grant. And then the rest of it is for dues, anything else that we need for our seniors. So that's a good, it always gives me money in the end to play with.
Good.
And we always need a little bit more. So, no questions on that. Let's go back to our salary. So the salary was $84,000. You have 91,724. The reason why that is because it kept on doubling it. We have a new system, we're trying to figure it out. I'd like it to double it a little bit more, but it doesn't. So the actual amount would be 94. We're increasing it, I'm sorry, 84. We're increasing it to 94. A portion of that is contractual. The rest of that, I'm asking for an increase on my employees by $1. Most of my employees, the last time they ever got a raise, which was only the 3 drivers, was probably about 6 years ago. The rest of the employees, they were originally paid years ago, 9 years ago, by a program called Citizens for Citizens. It was minimum wage, it was 19.5 hours. They didn't get any other benefits than that, and then that program died. So then we had to put them on the town. And that's Meals on Wheels,
Van, right? Is it the van?
all the drivers of the van, the janitor, and the transportation coordinator. So there's 7 people that actually work under the town. And they're all part-timers. I'm the only full-timer there. So they work 19.5 hours. And then,
You know, Suzanne, am I interrupting?
No, not at all.
And we met again with Suzanne and financial staff. And the other thing that is looming is the increase in the state minimum wage over the next
Right.
couple of years, up to $15. So the other thing is, we talked about is getting on the schedule to at $1 a year increase to do the same thing. So this is really also getting in compliance with the state minimum wage. So we're really just more or less moving in the same direction as the state minimum wage requirements. A little bit quicker, but really not that different. And also trying to do what Suzanne is hoping to do with the council on aging too. And just maybe a little bit quicker, but not that much more quicker than the state requirements, to also give people, get people moving a little bit quicker in that direction, and recognize the fact that they haven't had pay increases much more, and a lot longer than I think we had realized. So,
Do you want to get paid for not calling in sick?
I never call in sick.
you know, that kind of stuff, yeah,
But I don't think
very,
that's in
very
my,
well town.
I don't think that's in my contract.
You're fitting well here.
So this year, we survived the winter. Most of my seniors survived the winter. The community development grant, I just want to say, thanks to them, for the last 3 years, we got over $800,000 for housing rehab. We cannot do it again. The state changed the rules. Abington has to stand alone. We were teaming up with Whitman. We don't make it anymore. So they're leaving the offices in June. With that being said, we're going to try it in 2 more years. Try for that grant again. And hopefully they'll change the rules again. But we have a little bit of money left. So if you know anyone who would benefit from the
Will you explain the
housing-
grant, Suzanne, because we have
So
a few
the
new
grant,
people.
what it is, it's $30,000 for 15 years. It is a lien on your home. They have general contractors. They come in, they get paid step by step. They never get paid the beginning or the end. And it is anything in your home. Handicap, rails, bringing your home from that. I always get this screwed up, Lisa. The knob and tube, updating it, making everything to code. And it's not necessarily seniors, it's people that are living in their homes, they can't afford to upgrade. And this is, so in that $30,000, after 15 years, it's a no-interest loan. After 15 years, it's all gone. You don't owe anything. If you sell your house within that 15 years, you owe that money back. That's a lien on your property. If you pass away in your home and your relative is still living in there, it's still goes 15 years. So it's a non-interest loan for $30,000
For 15 years.
for 15 years. Not bad when you're someone who needs a roof replaced, or your health changes and you need a handicap ramp, or you need handicap things in your house, like your bathroom's updated. It's not a bad program.
What is it for people to qualify?
It's a income qualification. So we had a lottery at one point. We have gone through, 2 years ago, we have gone through all the list of our lottery for Abington. So we still have a little bit of money left. So if you know anybody, that would be great. Couple of announcements. Oh, I'm sorry. Do you have any questions?
Anyone
Okay.
have questions?
It's always about announcements of the Council on Aging. Couple announcements. This is our 10th year in that building, so we will be doing some type of celebration in June. Haven't really got a lot of details of it. It'll be open to the community to come in and look at the senior center. Everything else is going great. We have the dog park coming. They're doing an event in April. Do you know the date? No. They're doing an event, get your, to actually look at the land and look where the dog park is coming, and getting your dog's nails done. And you don't need vaccinations for that. And it's also a fundraiser.
How are you doing, how did you do through the winter with the heat and everything? Was it the heat or the air conditioning that you guys were having?
The air conditioning. We've upgraded the air conditioning. There's 16 units upstairs for a building. It's a lot in there, and people think it's a new building, but the building was built in '91. So we're still using the same heating, we're still using the same air conditioning. We're patching the units. We're just not, they're just obsolete units after a while. After, all this time, they're really obsolete. Need a new roof.
Yeah.
Roof is, I get shingles in my office. You can come over and see them anytime.
So have you put a capital plan for all this?
We did. We did.
It's on our capital.
Yeah, it is. It is. Other than that, we just kind of, our equipment's
Haven't been in a few months. Is the parking lot still on the plan, or
Yes.
has anything been done with the parking lot?
No, nothing's been done with the parking lot. It's on the capital plan.
Okay.
So that's, I think that's what we're looking at. I know that they're building some type of housing in the back, which was great, would be great for Abington, affordable housing, so as we need more senior housing.
Huge problem.
Huge problem, huge problem.
Huge problem.
For the housing, I think it's 3 to 5 years now for a wait.
I've heard even
And
some
that
people are-
goes-
it's 7. That's if
Right.
you're living in town already.
Right, if you're living in town already, and then you can get bumped off at any moment for anybody who has a disability, who's disabled. So we have seniors who've been waiting, I think one of them off the top of my head has been waiting 4 years for senior housing.
Senior house.
Because we only have so little in the town. And then that's it.
I have a question that's not related to this really. I know a lot of people had questions as to why the senior center wasn't open as a warming center in that big storm we had. Can you just tell everybody what the generator's power?
The generator that we have, that I acquired, actually, only does...
Doesn't come with the building?
It did not come with the building. That generator has been there 4 years. It only does the dining room, the 2 refrigerators, and the heat and electricity. And electricity is only like the lights. It does no, you can't plug in your computer, none of the outlets work. It's just the lights. On the other side of the building, all the offices, has no electricity on it. It's just not a big enough to do everything. So my issue was the heat, the water, so pipes don't burst,
Yep.
and the food that the seniors, that the Friends of Abington seniors stockpile in those refrigerators. And we are not equipped. We don't have any showers. We don't have any place to store medical equipment. I mean, medical equipment, I'm saying like, blankets and that, that kind of thing. We have walkers, we have wheelchairs. I'm inundated with those. And we are probably one of the last ones that get plowed. Knowing that when the schools are closed, the senior center is closed. I don't want any seniors out, and we don't do any services. And I think a lot of people want to come to we're actually working right now. It's a little in infancy, but we are working on some type of communication to the seniors. My seniors don't have computers. They are not online. They don't, so if the schools are open, they don't know it. They don't know
Several
that they can
people
come to the
didn't know.
schools.
Or
So-
nor would they have transportation to get there a lot of the
Exactly.
times.
So we're trying to figure out a emergency phone where they can get direction instead of calling 911 in the police station.
But isn't the housing authority there anyways, doing the, like, plowing and taking care of walkways and stuff
At
for
the-
storms and stuff?
At the senior housing.
Yes.
Yes, they do that.
But wouldn't you think that they would have told, I was surprised they hadn't told the residents that the high school was a warming center and you could take showers there?
Yeah,
and-
the only problem with the high school, it needs to be open 24 hours. It was only open 9 to 9 on one of those storms, you know, I mean, so at 9 o'clock, you go home to a cold house, and it's,
Right.
and my other concern is that I have a lot of seniors that are on oxygen, and they need, or they need CPAPs, or there are things that they need a generator for and to plug in, and that's another concern. Kenny Coyle and I have been talking about that, and how to find a way to get communication out and actually have people being delivered from one end to the other. I hope that answers it.
Yeah,
Mr.
thank you.
Yeah, just one point to that Lisa's question, because that issue did come up, some others have asked the question. To the extent that there is a facility, the high school would be the emergency facility for that type of, for a warming center or shelter. The concern would be, from an emergency management standpoint, is if you do go to the extent that you actually are opening a legitimate shelter, you then have the responsibility to staff it and to be prepared to feed people and have staff as long as it's open, which could be 24/7 for, for who knows how long a period of time. So obviously you have to be very careful to the extent that you actually go to the point where you actually are opening something as specifically as a shelter, warming center. So that's why, as you know, we eventually did open it as a place for people to come and take showers and, to basically play, use the gym, but never specifically as a shelter or as a warming center. So again, it is a cautious decision to make before you offer it as a shelter or a warming center. So, but thank you, that was a good information, Suzanne, that was specifically for that point.
And I'd rather have it just at one location. I mean, personally, I would only want it at one location, so you're not missing people.
And you'd need a much bigger generator anyway.
Exactly. I would need a large generator for all those things. And I don't know if I could feed all those people at the same time.
Do you have any articles for the warrant? No. We're just trying to ask departments while they're in,
Yep.
just in case. So we don't have to ask you back if you did.
No.
You know what I mean?
I do not. So just a couple of quick announcements. The dog park, the 10th anniversary is in June, I think it's June 8th that they had it last year. I don't know if that's going to be the date. It's actually the weekend of Abington Celebrates, so there's going to be a lot of stuff going on in town. And I think that's, and we still have community lunches, or the Colony House, or Colony Rehab Facility, the third Wednesday of every month has an open breakfast for anybody in the community that can come. And it's 8 to 10. So if you're around, you can pop on by.
Quick question, how are the vans running and?
The green van is our backup van, so every once in a while we are actually calling the DPW and asking for a jump because it's not used all the time. It's just used when we have overlap or when our van is in for repairs or just maintenance. It takes the highway department like 24 hours because they're really busy. The other van, it's great. It's got a couple of dings, from the winter. A couple of, tires coming out and stuff. We're getting it fixed. We're taking over that through our budget, so we're gonna get that. A couple little fender benders, little dents. Yeah, we're gonna get that fixed. But it was great. It's great. It's one of the best things that we did for the center. The other van was bad. It was a-
Did you say it takes 24 hours for DPW to come jump it?
No. So there, no. Oh, God, no. No.
No, it's like the
No,
maintenance.
no, I don't want to put that out in the universe.
No, that's why I just said-
Usually what happens, like if we need an oil change, brakes redone, anything that for our maintenance, we would never go to the highway department and say, you need to do it now.
Yep,
We leave it overnight, so that's when we use our green van.
sure.
But yeah, no, they come right away. They're actually, I have to honestly say, they've been really awesome throughout this whole period since we've been there. They've been really, really good. So, yeah. Okay, any questions?
No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Oh, we have a question in the back.
Yes, I'm one of the old seniors, and I'm a member of Council on Aging, and I've been on it since we went down there. And you say that the capital fund, the repairs and that are in this capital fund. How long does this capital fund last? And when do the requests for these repairs come up on this capital fund? Because it's fallen down around our ears in many ways, and we hear that, but nothing is done. It leaks like a sieve, even though she's had the roof done, repaired, patched. And that's a crime. Here's a town building that you're allowing to fall apart. So where on this capital fund are we ever going to get it?
So just to repeat for those who are watching the recording of this in case they can't hear you from there, the question is from a member of the Council on Aging, and it is in regards to the capital plan and the capital funding for things like the roof, because the roof is leaking in the building, and the question more to town manager and assistant town manager is whereabouts on the priority list is the senior center,
Roof.
the roof specifically.
I think that your question was, what is this capital plan and where is it? And just to explain it a little bit, when you hear about the capital plan, it's a 5-year plan, and it's a rolling plan, and it's updated every year by the department heads. And then we review it all, and then the most important, needs with the funding that we have, so free cash is how we fund it. We fund it each year, and that's our ability to fund these capital programs.
Or through borrowings, which again becomes part of
It's
the
a
debt,
big one.
becomes part of the debt plan every year, correct.
What'd you say?
I said, or through debt that's issued, or through borrowing, that becomes part of the debt that becomes part of the budget every year.
Okay, it's a rolling plan.
Yes, but
And
every
we
year
decide.
they're
So
approved.
does that mean by rolling plan that say, we're on there right now for the 5th year, but then it rolls and we end up still the 5th year because we haven't rolled down, something else has rolled to the,
Well, that could be, but in theory, that's how it works, yes.
well, theory doesn't.
I think she wants to know when the roof's getting fixed.
Right.
Where in this 5-year capital plan, I'm on Council on Aging too, will the roof fall into the category? Because keep patching it is one thing, water just finds another place. So then you gotta patch that, you're throwing money out the window.
Well, quite frankly, I can't say that I'm in a great position right now, right here, to answer that question, because I'm not a building inspector, and didn't come here tonight to answer that question, but I believe, some point within the year, we did have our building commissioner go down and look at it. He believed it wasn't a structural issue that required a full replacement of the roof, but it was a fairly minor repair issue. So I don't know that we're looking at a full roof replacement, to be quite honest with you. But once again, I'm really not in a position to answer that question tonight. It's something we have to ask someone.
You've been there, you've seen big brown spots. We've had pots under some of those, catching it.
Right, but once again, a roof leak does not necessarily mean you need a full roof replacement. It could mean you need a minor
But it leaks
repair.
here, there, and everywhere.
Is there a a summary of what the building inspector had that we could give them to show them, like he went there, he looked at it, he said whatever, I don't know what he did or what, is there any way we can get that to them so they can at least see it?
Well, once again,
Not now, but next week or whatever, they're on the council.
Once
Yeah.
again, I don't know, I don't have the 5-year capital road plan in front of me, and I know, like every department head, everybody else, gets, every year gets, reviews and gets to submit, whether it's a parking lot or whether it's a roof or whatever the situation, and
Yep.
review and update every year, and gets looked at and prioritized, so.
Yep.
So we can, again, we can
How'd you like to come to a COA meeting and let us know?
I go anywhere I'm invited to go.
Yes.
The third Tuesday of every month, let us
Not an
know.
issue,
All right.
Thank you.
All set. Thank you very much for the questions.
Yep.
Moving to our next department, unless anyone has any last questions, we'll welcome up the library. And for those of us, the library is page 46 in our budgets. Deb Grimmett and Henry DiCarlo, welcome aboard.
Thank you.
For the newer members, I'm Henry DiCarlo, and I'm the chairman of the Board of Library Trustees. And under Massachusetts laws, the Board of Library Trustees is charged with the management and care of the public library. It has to be a board divisible by 3, and we have a 9-member elected board, which is actually the largest elected board in town. And I've been on that board for
20 years.
30?
30 years.
A while.
Yeah, I think this is my 25th time in front of this committee, so.
Well, we thank you. That's a
yeah.
long time.
Yeah.
That's great.
Absolutely.
We've been lucky to have a great board and a great staff. I know your time is short tonight, you've got a lot on your agenda. I will say that we are bringing in front of you right now, and Deb is bringing in front of you approximately 1% of the town's budget, maybe a little less than 1% of the town's budget. And we think that we do more with that 1% of the town's budget to serve the broadest range of people in town, from young infants there for toddler time and for the infant program, all the way up to seniors that we deliver books to the houses and nursing homes and things like that. And in spite of some public sentiment that people don't use libraries anymore, they all have phones and computers, people use libraries a lot. We see that, and Deb can talk about circulation numbers, they've been going up over the last few years. The economy got a little better in the last 18 months, 2 years or so, so they've been going down a little bit because maybe people can afford to buy the books again. But the use of the building and the use of the services, and our mission is to be the primary information source of the town. And that is both in a physical, welcoming place and in a virtual place. I think most people in town, or many people in town, are aware that you can download books from the library and not pay it to Amazon. So that the services. We also are huge on sharing of services. We are probably the leaders in town on purchasing agreements between all the libraries, on the network itself, which gets you the services of 28 cities and towns or the libraries, plus the other networks, so that our citizens get value from all of those services. So with that, we hire a professional library director, and then we back off and let her run the library. And we're mandated that way by state law to do that. So I will turn it over to Deb to talk about the real numbers here.
Okay, I'm going to start very briefly with a handout about the municipal appropriation requirement. For those of you who are new to the Finance Committee, this is a whole bunch of state gobbledygook, and I thought I will try to be as quick as I possibly can, and I have now given out all of my copies.
I've been here for it before.
I know what it says. Okay, so in order for a library to be certified, there are certain requirements that towns must meet. You want your library certified for a variety of reasons. One of them is municipal reciprocal borrowing among towns. If a library is not certified, residents of that town cannot borrow materials from other libraries. They not only cannot go to those libraries and borrow things, but The other towns are not required to send anything through interlibrary loan. So if your library is not certified, you have effectively reduced the size of your collection from the network and by extension the entire Commonwealth of Massachusetts to what's physically in the building. So that's one. That's a very important reason for certification. Libraries that aren't certified face some dire consequences, mostly for their patrons. So there are a number of parts of being certified. First one is the municipal appropriation requirement, or the MAR, or the number that I look at every night before I go to sleep. This is for fiscal 19, our municipal appropriation requirement is $489,479. This is calculated by taking the total appropriated municipal income or the municipal appropriation requirement, whichever's higher. In our case, it was the total appropriated municipal income, which is a good thing, for the prior 3 fiscal years, adding them up, dividing it by 3, and multiplying it by 1.025%. Any questions with me so far? Okay, so that effectively means that number is a target. That's the number that we throw out in the fall at our meeting with financial people to kind of indicate we won't be certified if we don't have this number. We will have to apply for a waiver. Waiver applications are cumbersome, and it's not beneficial to the town to have to apply for a waiver, or to our library users. In addition to hitting the municipal appropriation requirement, there are minimum standards of free library service. Libraries have to be open to all residents of Massachusetts, except for the aforementioned poor people who live in a town that's not certified. We make no charge for normal library services. If you want to send a fax, you pay for it. If you want to borrow a book, you don't pay for it. So normal library services are those things that you would typically expect to do in a library: borrow books, borrow ebooks, and things like that. For our population group, which is 15,000 to 24,999, we have to be open a minimum of 50 hours per week for a 9-month period, and we choose the 9-month period from Labor Day to Memorial Day, which roughly corresponds with the school year. So we're open 50 hours. We're actually open 53.5 hours a week. The only change we make to hours is we close Saturdays in the summer. I would like to be open on Saturdays in the summer, but foot traffic doesn't justify paying free staff people to be in the building and air conditioning and lights. So if we get Saturdays in the winter, especially, are very busy. Saturdays towards, as school gets out in June, are quieter because people are doing other things. Library director has to have a master's degree in library science and be certified as a director by the Board of Library Commissioners. I am both of those things. And then this is the one that's most important for residents of the town, I think: expenditures on materials for direct patron use. Books, ebooks, DVDs, magazines, has to be at least 15% of the total municipal appropriation. So 15% of the $489,479 that, which is our municipal appropriation requirement for fiscal 19, has to be spent on things for people to borrow. Includes things like museum passes, stuff like that. We have to lend books and other materials to other libraries. We have to fill out state reporting requirements, and we have to report non-resident borrowing. Non-resident borrowing is good because part of the money that we get from the state in terms of state aid, certified libraries get aid from the state. Ours was just under or just over $21,000 for this year. Part of that money comes from non-resident borrowing. So we have an ample parking lot, a little bumpy, but we have an ample parking lot. We attract people from other towns to borrow books, and we get money based on that borrowing. The circulation system records where people come from, so that's all kind of automatically recorded, and then I fill it in. So that, in a nutshell, very quickly, is what we have to do for the state. Any questions on that before we hit the budget? And we want to do this basically so patrons can borrow from other towns and so we can get money from state. Okay, now, budget. And I have a slightly different copy than you do, but we'll go with this. All right, so starting with salaries, we have two: the level services and the requested budget. Level services includes a contractual 2% raise for the union staff and a 2% raise for non-union staff, as well as voted by the Board of Library Trustees when they voted on their budget. And I think that's fairly consistent. Does include sick leave incentive, which we underfund because we typically don't pay out, or pay out very little. It is an unfortunate fact of working in libraries that people will come to the desk, cough on us, and then say, I've just come from the doctor, I have, insert the disease of the day, and then say, I went to Chookies and got orange juice, and now I need a book, and I'm going home and go to bed. And then inevitably, the person who's been coughed on 2 days later is calling me saying, I'm sick. So it happens. So that kind of takes care of our salary line. I will point out the requested version is a little bit higher. We are looking for a part-time children's librarian. I've heard that financially, this is not where the priority is for the town for extra new positions this year, and I understand that, but it's there. It'll be there next year. It's not going away.
And I should point out, it's been there a number of years we've been asking for this position, and it's become more important to the staff and to the trustees this year with the geographic closeness now with a much bigger school. We have a very busy after-school afternoon group in there, and it's really been stretching the staff. So we've actually reformulated how we would utilize this person to deal with some of that afternoon traffic, because it's an issue that we're dealing with, but we could deal with a lot better if we had some additional staff that was focused on that group.
Just to support that as well, just a number I found interesting. In 1998, which was our first full year in the new building, we offered 108 children's programs and had attendance of 2,754 kids. I was the children's librarian at the time, staff was smaller, and I also served as the assistant director, so I didn't have as much time. Our children's librarian now does children's work only, and the assistant in the children's room is about 70% of her time is in children's programming, because this year, just kids programs, not teen programs, and not the over 2,000 kids we saw from school classes. We had 248 kids programs and saw 5,105 kids. We could definitely use some help there. Okay, moving along, if anybody has any questions salary-wise before I buzz forward.
How do you know how many people you saw? Did they just check out books?
Oh, for programs?
Give it a
Like,
sign up.
oh, we count them.
They sign
Give it a
Yeah.
sign in.
Oh, no, we do nothing. When I went, Miss Amy, the children's librarian, and I went to Beaver Brook for Read Across America Day on Friday, the first Friday in March, and before I left the 2 classrooms I visited, I counted the number of children that were in the room and recorded it on my phone and brought it back and gave it to her. This morning's toddler time, I substituted because Miss Amy was at a workshop, and I had 15 people, 9 kids and 6 adults in the first group, and 19 in the second group, and I don't remember the breakdown between adults and kids, but no.
I hear a rumor that at least one of these members can verify that?
It's possible. He can also verify that I did mention that toddler time was more fun than the budget. Don't throw things at me.
I might have to agree.
And just also for general traffic in the building, we have a people counter. So we count all the traffic going in and out the front door.
This might be not looked, people might not like this, but could you charge to let books be taken out, even if it's 10 cents, 5 cents?
Meet the certification.
That doesn't.
That would then get rid of this.
Yeah.
We have a rental book collection that is sponsored by the Friends of the Library.
Yep.
That is not a regular collection, and that is, if you don't want to go on a waiting list for bestseller, you can take a book from the rental collection and pay 10 cents a day. But that's not a regular library service, and every single item that is in that rental collection is in the regular library collection free of charge.
I understand.
Yeah, no, it's,
The concept of a free public library.
yeah.
Yep.
So, anything else salary? Electricity is fairly
How many people
straightforward.
work there? How many people?
We have 12 employees. We have 5 full-time, which would be me, the children's librarian, and 3 assistant librarians. And then we have 2 part-time library assistants who are in the union, and then we have, so that's 5 and 2 is 7, 4 part-time library assistants who are not union members, and then we have a sub. 2 subs, actually. So I think that actually makes 13, but. Okay, electricity, I do my best to estimate how much it's going to go up. It varies from year to year, depending on how cold it is, how warm it is, how much air conditioning we use, and the same with gas. It's, those lines are fairly expensive. Building repair and maintenance is a line that has gone up. The trustees are adamant about seeing that line adequately funded. The building is now 20 years old, and in order to keep it in good repair, it costs money to fix things. The recent power outage fried the backup battery for the fire alarm panel. If any of you were at the library for a 3-day period, the fire alarm panel was screeching for 3 days because they didn't have a battery in stock because they had a run on batteries. So anyway, the battery's been replaced, but it's things like that happen. We have plumbing issues, we have electrical issues. The library benefited from the town's recent electrical project. One of the things that didn't come under that project was replacing the lights over the circulation desk, which we did at the beginning of this fiscal year with LEDs. Those were halogens, they were hot, and they cost a lot of money. And
We
so now
previously
they are.
thought that it was going to be covered,
Yeah,
hadn't we?
yeah.
And then for some
It's
reason it
required a lift and the disassembly of.
School's got one. You can do it now, at least going forward.
Disassembly of the doors, and I'm hoping if these lights last as long as they're supposed to, I may be retired
do it.
before we have to do it again. That's my goal. Anyway, so building repair and maintenance is just obvious things like that, plumbing, things, and so on. Other property-related services, custodial, I missed repairs and maintenance, office equipment, that's the lease on 2 copy machines, the public one and the staff one. Other property-related services, custodial is cleaning of things. Somebody stepped in grease and walked on the carpet, and now we have cleat grease marks, they're sort of cleat-shaped, going into the children's room. Custodian will do his best on that, but I'm gonna have to get somebody to clean it, stuff like that. So that's for things above and beyond what the custodian does. We share a custodian with the town hall. The library's part of his salary is in the salary appropriation. Professional and technical line always causes confusion because the line name doesn't really say what it is. That's our assessment to the Old Colony Library Network. OCLN is what runs the library catalog, runs the integrated library system so you can check out a book. It provides the means for borrowing ebooks and things like that. So that's what that is. That's our assessment for the coming year. Postage is postage. The telephone budget, we actually don't have anything in that line because they're covered under the town phones. And then our supply lines, we have office and computer supplies, and then a little further down, tech supplies and custodial supplies. Tech supplies are things like the plastic jackets that go over the books, that cover the books, the labels that go on the spines, holders for DVDs and CDs, library cards, the key tag library cards, things like that, barcode labels. That's what tech supplies are. Office is fairly obvious. Computer supplies is, for us right now, is primarily printer cartridges. We do charge for public printing, 10 cents a page, and it's black and white only, and that money goes to the general fund. Computer maintenance is software licensing and any outside things we have to do. Wayne Norling, the town's IT manager, is wonderful and has saved the town a ton of money over the last few years when we have had issues. But occasionally, we have a couple of software programs that there's no earthly reason why a town IT person would necessarily have expertise in that area, so sometimes we have to go out. And custodial supplies is the usual light bulbs and toilet paper, mostly. Book budget, as I mentioned, needs to be 15% of the total. That's why it goes up. That's in between the level and requested services. And travel is mostly mileage reimbursement for staff for workshops and meetings. Yes.
Question.
Yep.
I know I've asked this before. Do we, with the custodial supplies, have we been bulk purchasing like with town hall?
We are
Toilet paper, paper
purchasing.
towel, is it in a, not a conglomerate, what is it? When
The-
we do it together.
Town has,
Collaborative, not collaborative.
the town has an agreement with, like, a cooperative
Yeah.
with Masons. So we get their pricing. So
Okay.
pricing is very good, it's competitive.
Because it's, you both purchase from the same.
Yeah, we're purchasing from,
Okay.
we're
That's
on the,
what
yeah,
yeah.
it's the same contract. So instead of getting to, it's, I think, easier to have a contract, instead of getting together in July and deciding that we need 3,000 rolls of paper towel. The contract pricing is competitive, and then we can just,
Right.
order.
For office and
Order
custodial, though,
as-
it's so low, it's not even,
Yeah, it's not much,
it's
we,
impressive how low your office supplies and custodial supplies are.
we, try really hard.
I know, I think it's
To be
great.
frugal.
Nobody stretches
Yes.
a penny like the library.
Absolutely.
I'm cheap. And then, and travel is, I did travel. Dues and fees is dues for the professional librarians, which would be me, the staff member I forgot, our part-time reference librarian, and the children's librarian for the Mass Library Association. And typically, those end up getting paid, are supposed to be paid in the spring, and quite frankly, last year, we were low on money in either electricity or gas, and we just didn't pay the due, we just didn't do the dues and moved the money, so. That's it, in a nutshell. Anybody? Questions, concerns?
You said there was issues with plumbing and electricity?
Well, just normal
Normal,
wear.
everyday stuff?
Yeah, normal wear. Let's see.
Which we didn't really see in the first few years when the building was brand new, but the building just hit 20 years. So
Yep.
it's been, creeping up on us with a few more issues.
The building does not look like it's 20 years old.
I can't believe it's
Thank
20.
you. We try really
do
hard.
take very good care of the building.
Seems like a common theme, though, that things need to be overhauled soon.
There are definitely buildings in the town that are all at a fairly similar age.
Yes.
So,
This building and the library built at the same time as part of the same project.
Sure.
So they're reaching that same point. And we were hoping at the 20th anniversary to burn the mortgage or burn the bond, but they
already
paid it off
paid
2 years
off.
early, to get better bond ready for the high school. So it was paid off in 2016, so, the building has been paid for, but as your home would be, I mean, after 20 years, you'd be looking at, fixing
Absolutely.
a carpet or something.
yes.
Specific examples for plumbing in the last couple of years, we have a new hot water heater. The library's hot water heater is tiny because, I mean, how much hot water does the library use? However, it did start leaking and was flooding the boiler room, which is never a good thing. We've replaced a couple of faucets. Electrical, the biggest thing we're having now is we have outlets that get used a lot, like people plugging in and out. The outlets are starting to wear, so when the outlet breaks, you have to, like physically
You have to
breaks,
replace the whole
you
thing.
have to fix it, because we really would prefer that the public not electrocute themselves in the library. It's never a good thing.
Until they
And then things with the boiler, I mean, there's boiler repairs. We have a maintenance contract for the roof, so the roof gets inspected twice a year, and you have
I just didn't know if there was
repairs.
like a big thing. I understand the maintenance stuff.
Newer members missed a couple years back when we had to replace the computer system for the HVAC system, which was running on Windows 95.
Oh, wow.
The chipmunk died.
Yes. Literally, like 2 years ago, it was running
Yeah.
on Windows
Windows
95.
95. It was a real Windows
Was
95.
it even supported?
It's like-
No,
No.
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 That's, it finally reached a point where we couldn't keep it going.
The problem was replacing the software required replacing other things, and it was
Sure.
quite
Yeah.
expensive.
No, it was a Windows 95 computer that had been running constantly since the fall of 1997. It had 3 replacement fans, and about 2 years ago, it finally was done.
Wow.
But that is a very good testament to the way the library takes care of things and is able to stretch it up.
Frugal.
Well, thank you,
We,
you guys
as the
do a great
finance
job.
committee,
Yeah.
very much appreciate
We
it.
love the library.
Thank you.
Capital plan?
Yes.
Capital plan, in the capital plan, we also have a roof, because
It's 20 years old.
it's 20 years old, and at some point, I mean, I think in terms of repairs and patching, I think we've been pretty proactive, but it is 20 years old. So the roof is in the capital plan, and also carpeting, because somebody mentioned the building doesn't look 20 years old. The carpeting doesn't look 20 years old, but the carpeting is 20 years old.
Really?
Yeah,
It really doesn't look
it's original carpeting.
Really?
Yeah. So at some point, that carpeting is going to have to be done, and both of those things are fairly big projects to the tune of about $500,000, a little more. It's a lot of square footage for carpeting, and it's a pretty big roof.
How many square feet is the library?
16,000.
And for the newer members who have never had a tour, we can give you the back room tour, the boiler room tour, and show you all the.
Yeah, no, some of my
Yeah.
favorite memories as a child is the programs of the library. I'm really enjoying whomever's posting those pictures on Facebook of the memories.
You see
It's really
yourself
fun.
yet?
I have seen myself
Yeah.
or recognize some friends, and it's great to now raise my children in the town and have them go through the same program, so
That makes
it
me
means
happy.
a lot. Yeah,
'Cause
no,
I was
you
the children's librarian when you
were,
were at it,
I
so that makes me happy. And as an example of our frugality, the pictures that you are enjoying, for those of you who don't follow us on Facebook, we've been posting pictures from the library's past, and we had an student intern a year ago, who of course cost us nothing, and one of her primary projects was going through hundreds of pictures and scanning them so that we could then set them up to automatically post on Facebook with very little staff effort for the Facebook postings, because we knew we had the 20th anniversary of the building. So that was huge. That was a huge thing, and it's been fun. We've gotten some good feedback, so thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
no, it's
you.
been
The
great.
only other
Thank
capital
you.
item, we did have some minimal repair done on the parking lot. We had some, the granite curb put in the front where it was becoming dangerous. But I believe there is a capital item for parking lot. Is that on?
Yes.
That's still pending somewhere out there for the
Yes.
two buildings.
For both.
For the
Yeah.
two buildings. And we held off on even requesting that until the construction was done because the contractors were parking down here. But they did beat it up with the trucks a little bit more than probably would have been. So it's out there.
And a big thank you to Dory for the work on the curbing.
Yes.
Oh,
We're gonna fix the
great.
It did
It
come
did
out
come
great,
out,
and people
yeah.
like it.
And the granite now will last a lot longer. than the
Yeah, I
concrete
thought it was
did.
insurance money was supposed to pay for it.
I think that's it.
Okay,
Thank you
thank you
very
very
much.
much, everybody.
Thank you.
Sue?
Okay. I flew down that 45 today. Worst people.
Hi, nice to meet you. Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Guys having fun so far?
Yeah.
It's fun.
So good.
Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, Dory.
I'm going to like to also present you the Board of Health and the Waste Collection
Yes.
budget. She drew the short straw.
I guess so.
What would you like to start with?
I'll start with mine.
Okay.
So with the salary increase, it's contractual.
What page are we on?
Hang on. No, accounting, we're on,
doing
we're on
One? No, mine's printed.
page 5.
5?
Yes.
So the salary increase is a percent increase based on some contractual obligations, and that's it.
What was the percent?
2. And the rest of my budget stayed the same.
Any questions there? God bless you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Board of Health,
Board of Health is page 42.
what is it?
42.
So again, the increase in salaries is a 2% increase for clerical contract. And nothing else was adjusted due to the fact that we do not have a Board of Health agent, so I didn't adjust for any travel or dues or anything like that based on
What are we doing about that?
Yeah.
their interviewing Monday.
But I mean, so how are we handling it in the interim?
In the interim, we have
The current health inspector from Avon comes every Friday, and just to tick away at the inspections. And then when we need a housing inspection or an emergency inspection, we have the health agent for Brockland and the health agent from Whitman that we call in. So we're getting a little bit done always, and then we're always covering emergencies.
And we then pay them?
We pay them per inspection.
Per inspection.
Yep.
Get a lot of applicants, or is it a?
We went out the first time, and then we had to go out a second time. So out of the second round, we have 3 excellent candidates that the town manager and I met with, and we're going to have them meet with a subcommittee on Monday night, which is a member of the Board of Selectmen and 2 members of the Board of Health. And then we'll do our consensus, and I feel confident that one of the 3 will be with us in a short period of time. But yeah, it'd be great.
And do we feel that the not changing the salary line from last year to this year will be appropriate?
Did we put in a 2% increase?
We did, I mean.
No, not for the department head. We
Right,
left
not
it at
for the
70.
department, there's the clerk,
Oh,
Sue
you're
mentioned the
talking for this fiscal
clerical,
year?
for this coming
Yeah,
fiscal year.
Yeah, we left, that's fine, we left it at that
Okay.
purposefully, and that's what we advertised at, and those
Okay.
are the candidates that we're getting in based on that, yeah.
Good.
And then there'd be a 2% for next fiscal year.
For 19.
For 19, yeah,
Yeah.
you're correct, 18 stayed at 70, yeah.
No, my question was for 19.
No, there's not a 2% increase in there for that person, because the manager's contract had not been ratified by
Okay.
them. So this is based on,
So that will change.
it may. I mean, if this person isn't coming in until end of May, you might
Well,
not want to give them a
good point.
2% increase
If he
come
comes
July
in,
1.
Yeah.
Right.
We can, yeah, so, see how that
Yep.
works.
And how many people is it?
There's just the clerk and the department head in there.
Full-time clerk, full-time health agent.
Thanks.
And then there's actually, well, you're gonna get into
Yeah,
it?
that's under waste collection.
Yeah.
And then 2 pages down, public health nursing, the contract stayed the same for 15,000 on page 43.
You need to go to Health Express.
And then waste collection is
Need to go to Health
page
Express.
36.
Oh.
36, waste collection.
So the salary has changed to 0. It's actually a grant position, and they previously weren't using the grant to pay for that person's salary. They were splitting it between here and the revolving fund and another fund. So there's an excess amount in that grant that I did the reporting on a couple months ago, and they questioned why we weren't using the grant for the purpose. So we had to, that's why we took this out. We're gonna pay that person out of the grant solely next
Because
year.
it has to be done that way.
Yes.
So it shouldn't have been done.
Well, the town is required to provide a portion of it, but we can provide that through the revolving fund. So it's the revolving fund and the grant that are paying for the salary, rather than the general fund, the revolving
And the
fund,
revolving.
and something else, but not the grant.
Okay.
And then the only other thing that changed in here is the purchase service budget. That's for our trash hauling. And there's a CPI, Consumer Price Index, that we were increasing it by what we think is going to be based on the history.
And so what was that increase, what's the percent of that increase?
It's about 35,000, which is what it was about last
About-
year.
Okay.
About 3%.
So can you explain that? That was one of the ones I was having trouble with. So so you're putting the budget up using the CPI index.
But it's the same numbers, they're just swapped.
For what though? Like what is the?
What is the CPI index?
No, I know what CPI index, but like what is it?
It's
why
based
would
on the
the-
contract. That's what the contract calls for.
That's what the other guy was trying to explain. Got it. Yep.
It was easy. Anyone have any?
How many cards does $2,000 buy?
Can't answer that for you, I would not know.
Trying to remember, we went over that with Sharon
I think it,
in the past.
yeah, I think it was
How many
70.
cards?
I think we get paid $75 a card if you purchase an extra card, but I'm not sure what we
What
pay
do
for
cards
it.
cost?
I'm not sure what the card is.
I'm not sure.
You can buy another one?
And well,
If you show that you need one.
yeah, not trash, but recycling.
Yes.
Yeah, and that,
Is
that,
that something new?
You did.
No,
that is actually.
No, it is not.
I tried to get one a few years ago, and they told me to put it in my neighbor's barrel.
Yes.
I've been
Yep.
told this, yeah. I know who said that.
But they will come out and
Recycle,
show you
trash
what
or
you're not,
recycle?
Recycle.
what, they will come out and assess your
Yes.
recycle, and you can then purchase
No.
another,
No, I couldn't.
but
So the-
now though.
They'll assess it and give you a bigger
Purchase
recycle bin.
wheels or lids and things like that that might break off.
Or a second one.
Oh, that's right, that's.
It's,
right.
it's a larger
Oh,
size.
larger,
I
yeah.
could get a new lid.
Yes.
Mine went missing the storm. I went out in my neighborhood, flashlight, couldn't find them. I was like, I'm gonna have to call and be like, my bins are gone. And 2 days later, I came home and someone laid them on my front lawn.
Oh, that's so nice.
That was good.
Well, they have a, no, there's a,
They have a-
Yeah, but
chip
Howard-
in them, so
Yeah.
that,
Like, I
Yeah.
had like taken mine in and a gust of wind came like
Real
almost knocked me
numbers.
over. It
Yes.
was
Yeah.
Trash barrel.
during that like nor'easter when we lost power. I almost got killed by the trash barrel. So I was like, yeah,
But to the question of how many does it buy, I do remember going over
We talked
it
about it last year.
with Sharon last year, and it was, the 2,000 was sufficient for the year-to-year replacement of damaged or lost barrels. So hopefully that is still the same. Any further questions for Sue? Any of the budgets that she went over? Sue, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Dory, Selectman?
Okay.
We're back to page, all the way back to page 2.
Back to page 2.
Last one.
All right. Everybody on page 2? So the first is the selectmen's salaries, and that is just a contractual increase.
will you explain the selectmen's salaries?
I will.
Just because I know that when people watch
Sure.
on TV and you
They-
say selectmen's
salaries,
salaries,
The
that they
selectmen
think
are
that the
not
people
paid.
are
They
getting
make,
paid.
they get big bucks, yeah. The
Cars and
selectmen
all
did not
that.
get paid. So that, exactly, that salary line item is for the salary for the town manager, the assistant town manager, and the part-time administrative assistant at 20 hours a week. And that is the salary plus a contractual increase for next year, 2%. And then.
Why wouldn't we break that out, just to make it easier,
It's-
so people would never ask that question?
It's just, isn't it, in the UMass code, there's
We
no.
used to be able to break it out in the old software. We listed out
Yes.
everybody, but this
This
software,
new
we can't do
software
it.
is-
Sure.
Well, we can. We found out how to do it after we started the budget process.
Yeah.
So next year, you
Next
can
year.
see it that
This
way.
is, yeah, this is, you can work.
I was
in
just trying to
progress.
figure out how to
Yeah.
stop the
This
question.
is,
Just
th-
don't
this
call it
year we're
selectmen.
dealing
Yeah.
with
That's too
not knowing the system as well as we would
Yes,
like.
yeah,
So next year we'll have better.
yeah, I
printouts
think
and
so, all the
numbers
bugs will
and-
be worked out.
We'll actually see the percentage differences between this year and last year,
Yeah.
things like that.
Yeah, exactly. The next line item is the auditing, that's the audit service that we have for the town. That's for the whole town, school and the town side, and that is a new contract that went up $2,000. That's for a 3-year contract. The next is our advertising budget. That is the same, that's basically, most of it, the $1,000 of it is for the tax classification hearing that Jack was talking about at the assessors for the tax classification. And the 500 is just for random, like help wanted for health agent type of ads. Selectmen postage, that's just mailing out all of our licenses. The selectmen, the licensing authority for the alcohol licenses in town, the commercial garages, the class 2s, the common victulars. So all those licenses are mailed out to all of the businesses in town. The next item, it says telephone budget, but once again, just of this year, there wasn't a UMass code to call it what it is, which is really a contractual reimbursement of insurance, telephone, and car. And the reason it looks like it doubled is because it was reclassed it was, part of that was in the salary line item last year, and we took it out of this year, out of the salary line item, and put it where it belongs.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Office supplies, we remained the same at 1,500. The travel budget, that's a contractual professional development budget. That $865 listed in FY '18, that's a formatting error in the template for what we've been talking about. It was, the 865 is incorrect, and it's 6,000, it didn't increase. Dues and fees at 12,525. The biggest part of that is what you were asking Deb about, the office supplies.
Mhm.
And we're one of 21 municipalities that are enrolled in Southeastern Regional Services Group. And they do all of our purchasing for DPW supplies, office supplies, and paper products. So the whole town benefits from that. With 21, buying power, that's why we get such a good deal with office supplies and custodial supplies. And then there's other dues, that we pay that we belong to. Any questions on that page? Okay. Next is page 17, the town office building.
You have to change that finance committee salaries too.
Where's
because-
that?
The next page, 3110.
Oh, I don't have that with me. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so right at the top of the next page.
What's it say?
Finance, it just says finance committee
salaries.
salaries.
There should be clerical. What the selectmen make?
I've never received anything.
Yeah.
On the selectmen, how many people is that? Did you say three? Three. So it's a
Two
town manager,
colon
assistant town manager, and then
Admin assistant.
admin. Yeah.
17.
Okay, page 17. The first listed is the town office building salaries, that's our custodian, and the 2% increase is reflected there. Next, you'll see the electricity budget, it's 36,000. The FY '18 says 32,000, but we've updated it to actuals, and we're actually spending 36,000 a year in the electricity budget, and 10,000 a year in the heating oil budget, which is actually natural gas. And the next budget is our building repair and maintenance budget. Just like the library, the town hall is 20 years old, and we do various supplies, general maintenance. We actually have some contracts. We do a fire alarm service contract for the town hall and the library. We do, heating and air conditioning contract, plumbing, various, as you can imagine, expenses. And you'll see it's increased by $2,000, and that's just to clean the windows and the carpets this year, because the windows inside and out and the carpets have not been cleaned. You may have noticed coming up the stairs, last summer somebody did a trip and there's just a huge stain that we can't get out, and it's just really time for a good spring clean. So that's that $2,000. Next we have the copy machine lease upstairs and downstairs. And office supplies remains at $1,500, and our custodial supplies remain at $5,500. Any questions on that page? Okay. Next would be page 18. Town reports. The $2,500, that is the cost for the 200 annual reports that we do.
Why do we have to print them?
We have to, it's state law.
State law.
Why don't
That's
somebody
way less
change
than we
that?
used to though.
We used to print
Good
600,
luck.
you're right. Now we print 200.
Is it a minimum of 200?
With the town can choose the amount, but 200 seems to do the trick for
Seems
us.
stupid. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to print them, I know,
Yeah.
I know. So, that's a requirement. And then the printing budget, the $4,000, that's really the notice that we send out to the households that you got that were having town meeting, which is a lot better than when we used to have to send out the warrants.
thing, yeah.
We
Yes.
changed that a few years ago, so now we just send notice of the town meeting, so that helped our budget drastically.
It's a lot more money.
Oh, it was
Yes.
a lot more money. So now it's just the notice, and that's budgeted for 2 times a year in case we have a special town meeting in the fall. We'd be able to pay for it, and if we don't, we just don't use it. And then it's also printing all the handouts for town meeting, and the bulk permit for the town is in that line item as well. Any questions on town reports? Okay. Next would be page 62. Is our liability insurance, and that covers all of our workers' comp and our liability for the town, for the school, for the fire, for the police. It covers all of our insurance in that one line item. Once again, there is unfortunately a software error in the FY18.
I was gonna say, that's a big jump.
Yeah, that would have been a big jump. It should read 786,250. And if you looked in your budget, you'd see that's the case. And we just put in a 5% increase. Yeah, sure.
786,250.
So I don't want you guys to think that there's a huge problem with the software.
Yeah, there really isn't.
We had them do a special report for you guys, and some of the stuff that they picked up or didn't pick up for just the FY18 budget was incorrect. But everything in 19 is what everybody requested is correct.
Yeah,
And,
yeah,
and
the
now
budget
our
itself
system
is
is
correct.
working right now is correct. It was just what they formatted for us.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I wanted the budgets to look somewhat like last year, because when I
Yeah.
was pulling up, you guys would have been like, oh, come on, we don't have this, we don't have that. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So we just put in, not knowing what the increase is going to be yet, a 5% increase is reflected in our entire liability insurance account. Any questions on the liability insurance for the town? No?
Does the new building change that at all?
It changed it a great deal because, and we had budgeted for that last year knowing for this year, but yes, it did. And then on the other end of that, the two schools coming offline helped on that end of it too. Yep. So that was a big factor. That's a good question. Any other questions on liability? Okay. And just town council. Our town council is on page 8, and we had budgeted that at 80,000. We put it up to 100,000 because, as you know, at the end of the year, we're always doing end of year transfers because 80,000 isn't enough. 100,000 probably isn't enough, but we're trying to get where we need to be. So we just increased that by 20,000, and we'll probably be still coming to you for end of year transfers. But it is what it is.
Did we have any big issues that required us to?
It's just every year, it's been under budgeted. Every year, it's always been over 80,000. We're just trying to get there, kind of like the snow and ice. You're just trying to get there, and yeah, so we just did an additional 20,000. Any questions on that? That's all I had. That was easy. I know, thanks for sitting back there, Rick. I do have,
Greg, I think, had a question.
Like, for the town council, is it just one person, or is it a company?
We have a firm, it's called KP Law. They're on Arch Street in Boston, and we've had KP Law for a long time, and they're an excellent firm with municipalities. And the benefit of KP Law is that they have so many attorneys that are specialized in so many fields.
Sure.
So you just have an attorney that knows if you have, you want to lease the golf course. Well, they have a special attorney that will just do that, or a Lauren Goldberg, her town meeting. They're very specialized. So,
Yep.
yeah, so they're excellent. They probably do most of the municipalities in Massachusetts.
That's great.
Yeah, very good. Yeah, they're excellent. We're really happy with them. And our auditing firm, we're really happy with too. Very professional.
So I do have one question.
Sure.
Because we don't have a Board of Health agent, I'm going to ask you just to clear up some rumors, because it's like going around like wildfire, that it was a Board of Health issue that closed the Great Child.
No. Oh, no, not at all.
So,
Nothing to
no,
do
I
with
know.
that.
So people have been saying, well, how could it have been a Board of Health issue? We don't have a Board of Health agent right now. And so I just wanted to clear that up, that,
Oh, yeah.
by
no.
asking.
Oh, okay. No, that was never,
No, it's
that's not a factor at all. They're actually just changing hands. It's going to be an Italian restaurant, Giardini's. And I guess they're a chain. They're in Florida. I think there's one down the Cape. So they're doing some renovations. They're coming actually to the Board of Selectmen meeting on April 9th to request that. So I'm looking forward to an Italian restaurant, but it had nothing to do with the Board of Health whatsoever.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up.
Any other questions, Sue or Dory? Or Rick?
I know you have other business, but we do have a small reserve fund transfer request for your next consideration next week. It's approximately $6,000, and it's paid a bill for the gentleman who did the appraisal work on the easement at the senior center. So, again, I'll leave that with you tonight.
Yep.
If I forget to do that, the town accountant will be happy with me for the rest of the week.
While we're discussing, any overall change in the draft budget and the balancing of the budget
Well, I would
at
say-
this point?
say, correct me, feel free to jump in, Sue or Dory, but nothing significant. The two major, again, not significant, but factors at play, as you know, the news we received at one of your recent meetings regarding the South Shore Tech was helpful, has helped to blunt a bit the, dare I say, the snow deficit, which has increased to approximately $450,000 at this stage of the game. That has helped to relieve the stress we would have had on free cash to help offset that. So that does still keep alive the question of the seed money availability to deal with the opportunity to seed the first year of full-day kindergarten next year. Again, the policy question, as we all know, is whether or not we're going to do that versus, fund, stabilization, what we typically do with free cash.
Yep.
One of the, as we follow a couple of issues, we talked a little bit earlier about the health insurance budget.
Actually, do you want to
Oh, yes.
come up?
Can I just, before you move on, just ask about, so if the VOTEC money is school money, right? So the schools pay
No.
the VOTEC
No, they don't.
just then, so the town does it?
Yes, the town pays the VOTEC separately.
So it doesn't stay in the school budget to then fund
Correct.
kindergarten? Okay. So, and can I just ask one more question? So if the town funds kindergarten this year from our free cash or however it is chosen, and then the state pays us back for
In
it?
FY 20,
20,
the
not
town
19.
is eligible for that to be reimbursed through the Chapter 70 formula. So it's the big financial hit is in the first year.
Regardless of
That's the problem.
how we have the funds?
That's
Right.
correct. That's the
Yes.
challenge.
And then
That's the challenge.
every year moving
Yes,
forward,
they
the
will pay
state pays for it?
Well,
For
they
a
don't.
portion
For
of
a
it.
percentage-
Our
a
enrollment
percentage.
would be increased because now all the kindergartners are counted as students, plus the students that came back from South Shore VOTEC. So our estimate is that those additional enrollments are going to give us almost enough money to fund the full-time kindergarten.
Okay.
But that reimbursement changes as the economy, they reimburse at a certain amount
Can't
one
trust
year.
the state.
They may not cut that,
state-
but they
the
cut
state
something else.
changes.
You can never
What the
count
state
on
gives you.
indefinitely what the state will do. That's, no community can. You can only work off the best information available in this time and place. There's no question about that. But as things stand today, the town is eligible for, based upon the current formula, almost complete reimbursement beginning in FY '20 for, as the enrollment would stand today. So the challenge is the seed money in the first year. So, yes, there's no question, there's some consternation, but as you've heard, and you'll hear next week, we'll all hear it, well, those of us who have the guts to appear, that, this is now something 80% of communities in Massachusetts are doing, funding full-day kindergarten. So even with our, our status with our snow deficit as it stands today, We're still on track to be able to fund the seed money for 1 year for the full-day kindergarten. The other thing I would say, and we've been talking about internally with our financial group, the two major fixed costs that we continue to track that came up tonight, one with the health insurance and one with the liability insurance. It's not out of the question. I know going back, it seems like so long ago now when the police chief was in here, the major priority, funding priority, staffing, trying to get our detective unit going again. The idea of trying to even fund, those positions even for maybe the latter half of next fiscal year. I know we brought it up at that time, if not for a full fiscal year, but even for the latter half of next fiscal year, if we think we can save enough in our fixed costs before, as we get closer to the end of this budget process. So that's not something that I would say is dead yet. So if we, we haven't given up on that. So those are the factors I think that are still out there in terms of this budget process. So none of it's bad. We do have some pending collective bargaining agreements. We're hopefully close with our fire union and our clerical union. Again, that's not an expensive proposition with our clerical unit. The fire union, obviously, it's a fairly large, expensive group compared to that. But again, this obviously isn't an appropriate forum to be talking about what the costs of that. But I will find an appropriate forum to convey to you what the costs of that would be and where the funding might be. So, but we are accounting for that. So, I'm sorry. So those are the factors, but nothing has really changed dramatically. But those are the remaining factors, I think, as we wind down this budget process. So, did I miss anything for now?
Questions? Anything?
I have stuff, but it doesn't necessarily have, I don't want to keep record or so.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You too.
Are we all done?
We are not. Apparently Barbara has questions.
Well, I do. So, looking at the agenda for next week, to have the school department in with two other departments when we have such a new board. Also, we've done away with we had done away with this.
We don't have two other departments.
Just
It's
school
just
department. It said school, water,
department
and.
no, water and veterans are the 18th.
Okay, because it's on the agenda for the 4th.
No, it's not.
Well, it's on mine.
I didn't send out the agenda for the 4th yet.
Oh, then where did I get that?
You
There's like a
listed
chain
the
of
3
emails, but
remaining
that was
departments.
the
that we had
remaining,
to-
but we had to confirm.
Okay, all right.
Yep.
So it's just the school
It's
then?
just the school. I did
and
not
then-
want to put anyone else with the school.
And, all right, so that's good.
Which made tonight longer, but
The Saturday meeting that we used to do, I think, we stopped doing that at the time because the board that we had at the time was a makeup of members that had been here for a while. So there used to be a meeting with the school committee and the superintendent and both assistant superintendents and the finance committee would attend that meeting on a Saturday. And it was an in-depth look at the school's budget, line by line, where there'd be discussion and you could ask questions, and sometimes it was like a 4-hour meeting. It was a long meeting, but it was really beneficial. I felt that it was. We stopped doing that because we had a board that had mainly, people had been to it.
Before
Yeah.
was on the board.
And then now we have a really new board. I just wanted to say we might want to look to going back to that.
I'm not attending. I'm traveling 4 times in the next month, and I'm
Oh,
working
no,
the
I'm not
next
talking
I
about
was
this
just
year
talking
because
about
the
next
school department's coming
Oh, right.
I'm
like,
talking
there's
about
no way I'm
Yeah.
next
doing
year.
a Saturday
We
meeting.
wouldn't be able to schedule it for this year.
No,
so.
but-
I would say let's
No.
just see how
Let's-
this goes next week.
Yes.
Why don't we just
And I'm,
move
and
this
I'm
meeting
on
to
the
Saturday?
board
next
meeting,
year.
and I've actually already,
No?
me
Start
and
at
Peter
6.
met with the superintendent and the assistant superintendent already, so I've already seen their budget briefly, so I mean, and it's a newer member, I don't feel like I need to know anything. I mean, I'm already seeing them again next week, I already saw them once before, so I feel like it'll be good.
We'll see how it goes.
Yep.
It just,
Yeah,
like I said, there's like a lot, that it's more than half of the budget. The
Right.
overall
Yes, it's-
budget, it's a school. So, that was my concerns.
I can say even next year I probably won't make a Saturday meeting. So I travel once a month and
I don't know if I'd
I
be-
work
I mean,
60
I
hours a
really-
week.
I think we should
And
move this meeting to Saturdays. Just kidding, it was a joke. End it with a joke.
Moving to the rest of our agenda, which we actually have a rest of our agenda, are there any liaison reports? Anyone? That's a no. I do not believe there was any correspondence
I was
tonight.
late, so I didn't check them out. I apologize.
So, and we do not have, do we have minutes to review? Yes, we do.
You are?
We are, yes. Yeah, one is on me, so. We have meeting minutes from February 28th, so a full month ago now.
Motion to approve the meeting minutes of February 28th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
I want to say that it's 2018, though.
Oh,
It's
yes,
not
good point. The
2014.
minutes say 2014. That was a while ago.
I will correct that.
Just caught that.
So is the motion to approve with the amended year?
Yeah, the year, yeah.
Second.
Mike, second. Any further discussion? All those in favor of approving the minutes? Those opposed? Those abstaining? The ayes have it.
Thank you.
Our next meeting is April 4th, next Wednesday. It is with the schools and only the schools.
What?
I won't be here. I'm going to be
Okay.
in Columbus, Ohio.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I heard it's nice there this time of year.
Are there any other points of discussion, motions?
Motion to adjourn.
I hear a motion to adjourn and a second. All those in favor? The ayes have it. Thank you all.